Oh, I should probably actually pull this up on my thing, because I don't have two screens, so I can't actually see the chat, and I'm sick and tired of Disconnard telling you I don't pay attention to the chat. He can do one. I see him in the chat. Fuck you, Disconnard. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. Oh, I see we have yeah, it's side, it's fine. Right. Good evening, everyone. How was that for an introduction? Today, because Parliament is in summer recess for the next 6 weeks, I believe, basically school summer holidays, here anyway, I figured we'd mix shit up. And to do that, we'd start with the recent FISA thing. There's a word for it, and I can't think of it. To explain this and other conspiracy crap surrounding Trump, I have asked my delightful patron Trups to join me and explain this to me. Say hello, Trups.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Yeah, see, that was not bad, was it?
No, not at all.
Not at all, not at all. Yeah. So where do we start? Oh, hang on, before we do that, actually, people are going to notice that while you're here, there's nothing on the couch. Yeah, you're just the couch. Okay.
Okay, I can be a couch, I suppose.
You can be a couch. I was going to ask Christina to draw a mannequin and then just get your avatar and stick your head on a mannequin. But I forgot to ask her.
That's okay. I probably would have stolen that mannequin and used it as my avatar because
it'd be kind of useful to have for. Yeah, I'm too lazy to. Yeah, talking to the Invisible Man. Yes, that's it. Disconnect. Traps is the Invisible Man.
Wonderful. I'm played by Brad Pitt in the new Deadpool movie.
Congratulations. So where do we start with this? Because it's. Oh, I don't know. It's gotten to the point where I sit back and I just watch from distance people taking shots at Trump, and it almost seems like he can't be torn down at all.
Well, most definitely. Like right now, it seems like everything that they throw at him, he kind of just takes in stride and throws it back.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm not.
I guess the best way to.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say I'm not. And people say this to me a lot. I keep getting told I'm a right-wing nut job, conservative. I don't really care about the conservative part. Maybe some individual values are that. But I don't really care about Trump. I just think it's hilarious how successful he is becoming, because how he's doing it so different.
Well, interestingly enough, if anybody will watch my videos on my channel, they would probably say that I was conservative too.
Link in the description.
I decided to take... oh, yes, thank you. But I actually took one of those political compass tests recently, and I found out that I was dead center on left and right, and 2 deviations down towards libertarian.
I think when I took it three years ago, I think I was very close to centre, a couple spots down, but very close to the centre on the left side. But then I realised that, and this is the one thing that actually annoyed me, was that a fair few questions I couldn't give a middle ground to, where I felt a middle ground was needed. I had to take a stance either slightly or absolutely to one direction or the other, and I wasn't so keen on that.
I think they've changed it where now you can agree, strongly disagree, and then no opinion.
Ah, right, no opinion. I'll have to look at it then. Maybe I'll have a look. That might. I'm not going to make anything
changed.
Okay, so with Trump seemingly being not necessarily untouchable, because he gets, I don't know, the way he's memed, it's very reminiscent to me of how Tony Blair was during his time, to the point where there are people who just impersonate him and mock him all the time. Do you think that, even with all of that all the controversy, and it just bolsters him?
I do, actually. Trump is almost like a pathological narcissist.
Oh, we all know that.
Well, then any media for him is good media. So the more that people will talk about him, it'll basically keep boosting his ego, because even if things are going poorly for him, people are talking about him. The blimp that went up in London, that was just the biggest bolster to his ego that you could ever have done. You made a blimp of this guy.
There was a blimp GoFundMe done not long after for Sadiq Khan, and I think it got funded within 3 days.
Wasn't it him getting mounted by a pig? Because reasons.
I would have gladly paid for that. Um,
I
and
consider it
yeah,
myself.
someone in the chat wrote Trump best PR is the MSM. Yeah, it is. And I kind of, it sucks really because you're not, the people who complain about him write vast articles about his tweets, and one of them recently, the Iran caps lock tweet, that got a fair amount of publicity, and I think I did. Oh, I got to take off my screen. There's some fantastic memed versions of it about him talking about soy boys and haters. It's just his foreign policy of just being a massive dick seems to work. I know
Oh, absolutely.
people shift the goalpost with North Korea, and then people get incredibly suspicious with Russia, and I don't get it. I really don't. He's having the conversations people seem to not want to have, and I don't understand why it's a bad thing that he's willing to have the conversations and has had the conversations.
It's because it's Trump. It's simply because he is who he is. They don't actually care what he does. Anything that he does is wrong to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I don't know if you saw when we were getting a new Supreme Court justice chosen. Somebody had actually sent an article pre-written before he had actually chosen, and it had XX in the name slot.
Was this Kavanaugh?
Yes, it is.
Right.
That was who he ended up choosing. But he had one of 3 choices. There were even pictures going around on Facebook that had people with all 3 signs waiting for him to choose one so they could pick up the correct sign. So it doesn't actually matter.
Wow. It is an actual case of no win. I've watched a lot of Styx Hexenhammer, and he firmly believes Trump will annihilate anyone virtually in 2020.
I'm starting to think that myself.
And I tend to agree, because I don't see how he's going to lose the House or the Senate. I think he's going to gain seats in the Senate, and I think he's going to retain control of the House, which, I'll be honest, will this retake some the hashtags for the blues,
drain the swamp.
Probably that, yes. But no one's addressing the individual issues. And I remember having a debate. I'd say debate, a disagreement with somebody on someone else's stream about the Nobel, and I firmly believe that Trump should get it if we're basing it on the parameters that Obama got it for being black. I'm sorry.
Does that mean that Trump gets it for being orange?
Yeah, he's an individual race, of course.
Yeah, of course. He's his own person.
I don't. But the disagreements about, they pointed out to me that Obama had in fact said he would sit down with no stipulations with then leader Kim Jong-il. Well, that raised an alarm bell, because that would mean that Obama wasn't president at the time like they told me he was. He was actually just the first term, half a term senator that he was before he became president. And he was panned by everyone, not just Republicans, like I was told.
Think of it this way: like if you were a leader of a leader of the free world, and you were basically saying that a country that you deemed inferior was so beneath you, you didn't want to talk with them, you would not speak with them.
Yeah.
If you were that lesser country, then you would kind of look at that and say, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to show you how much you deserve to notice me.
Well, actually, yeah. Trump's approach seems to have, even in trade, it seems to have gone down really well, because he's managed to get the EU to back off on the tariff shit. Although Barnier looked so small next to Trump. I felt like
Trump commands this presence. It's odd, just talking about how he is framed in a lot of interviews or whatever. He seems to command such a strong presence on camera.
Well, it might be
charismatic,
wasn't before he became, not Trump, but before he became president, didn't Reagan used to be an actor or something? So even he had that similar. He's quite popular with Republicans because he had that similar kind of presence. Not similar in the sense that he'd throw Starburst at Merkel and say, "Don't say I don't get you anything." That's unique. And how the fuck is Trump still alive? All he eats is McDonald's and Starburst.
I actually don't know, but there was actually a joke at one point. He said, "Yeah, he walks a lot. That that's pretty much all the exercise he needs." And he basically went on in his usual Trump fashion, was saying, "Nobody walks more than me.
Yeah,
I walk the best."
he does. Someone put it in the chat. Trump learned much from the WWF. Yes, he learned to cut a promo. Okay,
Well,
so
Linda McMahon is one of his cabinet members, so.
she was unsuccessful in her attempts twice or three times to become a senator for Connecticut. So that's not surprising. And I believe she spent over $60 million of her own money to try and win. Turns out money can't buy you a Senate seat.
Tell that to Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
Can't win you a presidency either.
Well, she certainly. If she runs in 2020, oh dear God. I know people are saying Joe Biden already, and I'm like, no, it's not Joe Biden. Please don't.
No, God, but Biden wouldn't do it. He's. I don't think he would want to contest that.
I know that the only time the people who really like to complain about, and I don't say all, but those who do complain about Trump without truly being able to argue what he stands for, I guess, policy-wise, they'll only celebrate when he's gone. But if he becomes a two-term president, oh dear, you either have to have some be able to reflect on how he won, or you're just going to continue that push for blaming, and not understanding how he won to begin with.
Like a lot of conservative YouTubers have been remarking on that the Democrats refuse to reflect on themselves. They refuse to look at how they approached the situation and criticize themselves. That was like the biggest thing with Hillary directly after the election.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing with Hillary right after the election. Oh, it was Russia. Oh, it was Trump. Oh, it was Middle America. Oh, it was the hillbillies. Whatever.
It's the rednecks. Which fuck the rednecks.
Well, it honestly alienates the country more to say, "Fuck you, Democrats. We don't ever want to see you in power, and we're gonna make sure damn well that you never get it."
Mm-hmm. So, well, there's already a thing floating about that. With the Congress and Senate seat stuff election happening this year, that if somehow the Democrats manage to take the House, they would then push to impeach Trump. Is that possible?
I mean, theoretically, yes, it's possible, but it wouldn't hold up. Like, so we have the separation of powers where Congress would be able to bring up impeachment charges, but I don't see it going further than there.
I don't see them winning any seats in Congress anyway.
Well, I don't think. Well, so I don't know if you've ever seen this on Twitter, but you see this hashtag Blue Wave thing.
Yeah, that's the one I think I've seen.
Yeah, it's basically everyone saying that Democrats are going to take back the Senate, we're going to take back the House.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna take the whole shebang, except they're not.
No. Sorry. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news here, but it's unlikely.
I don't think it's bearer of bad news though, because I checked this out earlier today. I looked at the Dow Jones, which is basically a stock that basically indicates the market health for the United States. And I have seen it since 2010, 2015 or so. It has been a steady increase ever since then. So it's very curious that if Trump is the end of the world, why is everyone making so much money?
Well, that also holds true with the fact that the unemployment rate has continued to plummet, along with job growth going up.
Yes, unless you ask the Democratic Socialist in New York, then she'll say that unemployment is low because everyone's working 2 jobs.
Yeah, that I've heard that a lot used as an argument. We have similar arguments in this country, but the ones in this country are more valid. We have unemployment at record lows, but millions of people are doing 0-hour contracts. They have no employee rights, which is a big bone of contention, and obviously the stress of not having a stable job to begin with. People working second jobs doesn't mean anything, really. It's just you're working 2 jobs, that's it.
Well, and also if you consider the amount of debt that a student will take on, for example, I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. So I had my sister and my brother go through college, and then I had to go through college.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad because my mom basically foot the bill, and then we paid off the debt once we got out of school. But I mean, she's like a superwoman. She works 3 jobs, one as a guidance counselor, one as a tutor, and then she works as a salesperson in Macy's. So
that's just mothers. They're always proactive and they always do that. Good parents do
Yeah.
anyway.
right, good parents, yeah, exactly.
Hashtag not all parents, of course.
Not all parents.
So, just to get onto the topic itself, what is this FISA thing?
So FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Securities Act, and basically it handles all espionage from other countries, and how internal procedures for dealing with foreign entities within the United States will be handled and prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening with this release of the FISA application was, how Trump is currently under investigation by the FBI.
I had heard about this, yes.
He is under investigation because somebody submitted a FISA application. What's important about a FISA application is it's one of the hardest, essentially, search warrants to get into a person, because it basically asserts that this person is a foreign entity. Now, in this case, the FISA application was into an associate of Trump's campaign, Carter Page.
I'm just going to put it on the screen so everyone can see it, because I actually have it.
Okay.
I'll put it on scroll. There we go. Keep talking.
So this basically is asserting in the application that Carter Page potentially has some kind of foreign he has foreign power backing him. He is, as it says here, it says an agent of foreign power described in detail below. And it basically says he is working with Russia.
Well, of course. They're the bad guys,
Yes,
remember?
Yeah, Russia, bad guys, ever since the fucking Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting about this document is that it came out that one of the reasons and rationale behind the document was the fake dossier that, after the Nunez memo came out, that the DNC funded from a Russian intelligence agency.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main things on here.
So
and
much
then
redacted, though.
I understand why it's redacted, but I'm also sad it is. So
yeah, well, I'm gonna keep doing this. It's brilliant. I'm gonna keep scrolling it because it's 412 pages.
Yes, Graham, the Steele dossier, and so what ended up happening is then a Yahoo News article then covered the dossier as it came out, and they used that as another thing, as proof that this has merit to go investigate. And what's interesting right now, as things have gone on, is one of the people on the endorsement of this application was Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein,
Mm-hmm.
who is currently in the news because they're considering impeaching him.
Of course they are.
Well, what's odd is that he's GOP. He's a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost have a little bit of, I guess you would say, some kind of espionage going on within the GOP.
I just think it's so weird to have any kind of conspiracy like this when Donald Trump's involved. I'm just sorry, I just can't associate espionage with him. Just anything that ties to him in any way just seems odd. That's my lack of skepticism. Let's go with that for now.
Yeah, but Graham does bring up a good point. He hasn't been indicted. Carter Page has not been indicted for anything in the 2 years that he's been getting
I'm
investigated,
done with that. Let's go
and
back
that's
to this.
because all of this, Russian investigating has yielded nothing. They
Well, that sounds like a
haven't been
waste of
able
money.
to find anything out of it.
Right.
Um, and so basically, what you have now is another basically a leak or corroboration to these conspiracy theories, if you want to call them that. Basically saying that what Fox News has been saying has actually been accurate.
Has this been reported much by other news outlets since it came out?
No.
Imagine my shock.
I saw MSNBC video today that is still talking about what uh, a tragedy the Helsinki summit was.
They said that, didn't people, when Trump sat down with Kim Jong-un, minus the memeage, which was fine, of the salute, because I thought it was hilarious. But instead of, when initially people were already like, when it first got agreed upon, and then there was the first pullout, people were like, he was never going to sit down with him. But then when he did, it was no longer about that. It was simply, you've just legitimised him. I'm sorry, but how is diplomacy just not talking to them? Which is what it comes across as. Your foreign policy idea is not to talk to those you disagree with, but to simply put your fingers in your ears and go, no, 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 can't hear you.
Well, here's the really weird thing, right? So Hillary Clinton paid a Russian investigative, service to formulate the Steele dossier.
Mm-hmm.
But Democrats say Russia's bad. Curious.
Right.
Odd. And then the Uranium One deal, where Hillary said, I think it was 20% of our uranium to Russia.
Didn't she
as
get
one of the last things that she...
a lot of money for that?
Oh, a fuck ton.
That's not
metric.
suspicious.
Oh yeah, of course not. And an additional 400 million, I think, from one of the Russian oligarchs as well.
Yeah, I'd heard about that. Actually, that was the part I remember quite closely. That seemed like a, I don't know. Was that a donation to her party or to her campaign?
Unknown. But you probably wouldn't. I'm not the best at campaign finance reform, but I'm gonna say it's probably still illegal to take money from a foreign power in sums of 400 million. So I'm gonna say it's still probably illegal.
I tend to think that there should be limits to what people can donate from the offset. I think once you start donating millions to someone, yeah, no,
Right?
no, there's something weird going on. And also, if you're backing people with that much money, you clearly are in it because you want something in return.
Sargon had done a video actually talking about the situation with Russia in 2016 while the election was going on, and he remarked about the state of Russia-U.S. relations, which basically amounts to Russia was on the brink of disaster prior to the 2016 election, and by that I mean they were so poor that they were pretty much backed into a corner about to unleash nuclear war. So if Hillary Clinton, who was, I believe, still Secretary of State at the time, had gotten elected, it was almost a shoo-in for Russia that we would likely to get into a war with Russia.
Right. Someone in the chat says that it was to her foreign relief fund.
That's what they do say, all these fancy words: foreign relief fund, Clinton Foundation, but at the end of the day, the person still gets the damn money. I mean, I've got 3 bank accounts, but all of it's fine.
I'm not too familiar with foundations, so I don't know how that works, or whether they. Yeah, I have no idea how they work. Let's go with that.
Basically, foundations were nonprofit entities in the U.S. are tax deductible, so any income that you get ordinarily would be taken out by taxes. You can simply throw back and say, this is part of my nonprofit. and they'll give you
Right.
a tax deduction of likely most, if not all, of the tax.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Carlos, I don't know if it was a staged war with Russia because, to be fair, Russia was doing questionable things at the time, but I'm pretty sure that we had forced them into that position as well. That
I,
regarding Syria.
oh, the Syria thing, yeah.
Well, Syria is basically uh, a major Russian asset in how they transfer oil and get basically do a lot of their trade. And when Gaddafi was still in power, that was a established dictatorship. It was an established regime that, while questionable with their citizens, was
Mm-hmm.
still essentially a Western dictatorship.
Yeah.
Well, America feeds money into ISIL, whichever, I guess, ISIL at the time.
Daesh, I believe, is the one that they want to use in Parliament now.
Yeah, okay. Um, so we were funneling money into rebels who eventually took Gaddafi's head and put it on a pike,
Mm-hmm.
and now Syria is run by some group of radicals, kind of like the beginning of the Afghanistan war.
Well, that sounds oddly familiar.
Doesn't it? America has this terrible, terrible situation where we want to get rid of Western dictatorships because they don't want to deal with us. And so we're like, hey, terrorists, that sounds like a good plan. Let's throw it to them.
Do you think Trump would do something like that?
Trump never would. He would rather handle the problem and get rid of it than or actually he would probably want to ally with the people protecting them and say we can work out a deal to make this worth our while.
Right.
Sorry, you were right. Gaddafi, this whole thing was about Libya. Syria is now. Sorry about that.
Correction. So, with this particular FISA document, and it not being reported on that Trump was right, what's the current thing they're going after Trump for now then? Is it the Iran nuclear deal?
I'm sorry, say it again? I was typing.
Oh, I thought maybe you had thunder and lightning.
It's actually calmed down quite nice.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. I was saying something. Oh, right. Since the FISA controversy, and that's, I've noticed on Twitter, it seems to have gone unchecked, even by those who are quite left-leaning content creators that I talk to. They don't talk about it because it's proven him right, and a lot of them do. They seem to lose control quite quickly and get very emotional whenever he does something. So, and some have shifted their focus entirely onto the Iran thing instead. Do you think that's going to be the next controversy?
I think it already is, but it has already been put to bed so quickly.
Well, he pulled out of the nuclear deal because it was built on lies. So
Oh yeah,
it's not surprising. I'm sorry, and I've had a few people on Twitter have a go at me when I said that in videos. I'm not wrong though. The deal was a lie.
Yeah, but they don't want to accept that because it was done in a time period where they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, another reason they don't is because they think, yes, but look how peaceful things are just by keeping this in place. Okay.
Looking the other way while explosions are happening.
But principles, well, yeah, but also principles state that, you know, if you hold yourself to certain standards, you're not going to allow this to exist. You know, if you have basic common sense, you're not going to just let that pass. I just don't see why you should.
No, and I think that's kind of the same thing that happened with the EU as well.
Before we get onto the EU, I do get the argument people have said that it's not America's money, it's frozen Iranian assets they were unfreezing. Was that what it was? I believe someone told me. Yeah, I get that. I get it. Hello, Tailed, and Vincent. I just don't care. So, what are your current thoughts on the EU? Because this one's quite interesting. Because today, Michel Barnier, chief negotiator for the EU, has said the Chequers plan, no.
Right. From what I understand, the EU is swiftly approaching a no-deal Brexit. From what I understand.
And if that happens, the EU will suffer a budget deficit of 250 billion. That is known.
What happens when you keep people in debt?
That is painful for them. We, obviously, no deal. We will be in a bit of a spot of bother. Of course we will. And we need to secure deals immediately. And I
think Trump is ready to do that if you guys do a no-deal Brexit. Basically, what I got from the Theresa May Trump interview was that if Theresa May does go, or if the country goes with a no-deal Brexit, regardless of who's in prime minister position, I feel like Trump is ready to organize deals.
Yeah, the problem with Theresa May is that more people are starting to believe that it's not going to be a no deal, and there are a lot of people who are saying you need to take no deal off the table. I keep saying no, you've got to keep it on the table so the EU know you're serious, because it's one of the few power cards you have. Your deal to us is not good enough, CLIR, but then people want us to remove it off the table entirely, or want a second referendum because we haven't taken it off. And that was something I tweeted out today with Gary Lineker, who's a very famous soccer player, and was a famous soccer player in this country, one of the greatest, in fact. He talked about wanting a second referendum. No, we're not doing this, okay? But Theresa May, and a lot of people start to think this now, that she might instead postpone D-Day in March and extend Article 50 by up to 18 months to buy more time to negotiate this. I think there was a mistake already because the Chequers plan was made so late, meaning that when David Davis left after having been our negotiator for so long, there was very little time for Dominic Raab, the new negotiator, to step in and do anything really realistic. And so it was always going to be a botch. And then when Theresa May micromanaged it, I just thought this is going to go badly for us now.
It's hard for me to necessarily weigh in on too much of the internal aspects of EU politics because you say Article 50. I'm not quite sure what that means.
Article 50 is the withdrawal EU withdrawal agreement. It basically enacts the legislation and revoking of our membership.
Okay, so it's basically the we're leaving message.
It's the unsubscribe button.
Gotcha.
But we then have, because of what Article 50 entails, 2 years to negotiate our terms of leaving. And
now this is only the UK leaving the EU, right?
It's the United Kingdom, yes. So England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Because somebody was mentioning the Irish and the Dutch got hoodwinked, and I was wondering how would those neighbors, because I mean obviously most of Europe is quite tight knit.
Yeah.
How would those then be affected?
The Ireland issue right now is quite annoying because we've put Ireland onto a pedestal because of the Belfast Agreement, because of the divide between Northern Ireland and Ireland. There is no border in between those two countries, even though they're part of the same island. But the EU, based on their rules, would place a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland because of what's called the Good Friday Agreement, which is a ceasefire between those two countries because of religious bollocks, basically.
Okay, native. What makes Southern and Northern Ireland different is their opinions of Catholicism.
Yeah, basically, it's a religious thing. IRA, big pain in the backside. And because of that, we put just Ireland, onto a pedestal. And that's meant that they've got a card on us. The EU does in negotiating. And so they can be more strict on what they can and cannot be flexible on. So basically, they're just not being flexible. They refuse to be flexible. And this is a key point that people seem to not want to understand. David Cameron, when he was saying we should remain, the Prime Minister at the time, he was saying that he wanted to reform the EU. But if 2 years has shown us anything, it's that the EU is utterly incapable of doing this. The Netherlands go, I remember Griffith's good friend. She talks about the elections in a country when they happened, and was it Geert? I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Geert?
Sure. I'm not. I don't know.
He was I think he was a far right campaigner, and I think he came second in the elections. But even though it was a close fought win for the left, she believed that the country would not push forward with any kind of change to the membership of the EU. And they are quite a key member of the EU, so it's unlikely they will leave at all. But there is an increase in populist politics at the moment in quite a number of countries. Italy is being and Poland are perfect examples. The Czech, Austria, Hungary, and
I love all of the the Western Asian countries right now. All of those Czech areas are just fantastic.
Yeah, they're just this is why it's quite obvious there is a vast difference in culture in countries, and people think that that we should stay in the EU because we can still enact change, but 27 member states all have so many different views on how things should run, and so do we really think we can affect any change when people aren't going to agree with our perception on life, on so many different policies? So it's really silly and naive to think that.
Well, I mean, let's think about it for a second. All of those Eastern European countries, Poland, Austria, all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was only about 100 years ago that they were Ottomans, right?
Yep.
And then they established independence, kind of, and then Germany took them over. So can you really blame the country for being sick and tired of other people's shit?
Yeah, Merkel is lucky to still be in power. Her utter unwillingness to bend on the immigration issue, because this gets brought up in EU Parliament. I watch EU Parliament now. I watch it avidly. They talk about this as the migrant crisis. We must deal with it, but their solution is to tell other countries to take more people in. But shocker, other countries don't want to do that. They want to manage and control numbers so that their countries' economies are not impacted negatively, which, much to the chagrin of a number of progressives, it is always affected negatively. Especially if your economy is already quite weak to begin with, which a number of Eastern European countries are.
Isn't it interesting, though, how two different people on two different sides of the political spectrum will say migrant crisis and mean completely different things?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Merkel's side will basically say the migrant crisis is, oh my god, look at all these poor refugees, we must help them. And the other people are saying, oh my god, this migrant crisis, everyone is getting fucking killed and raped.
Yeah, don't.
I've seen hyperbole. But...
I've been tagged on a few tweets recently about that, where I think Paul Joseph Watson, he tweeted about a girl having her pants pulled down, and then some immigrant kids tried to do something, and then she was she was blamed for it for not being a Muslim or some stupid shit.
It wasn't too long ago that the New Year's Eve debacle happened. Wasn't that 2016?
Was that the thing in Germany?
Yes.
Oh,
where they organized a whole bunch of guys, and they called themselves the Kings.
Yeah.
And they went around and committed terrible atrocities.
There's a name for that. It begins with T, I believe. An event, a type of act. It's a cultural act beginning with the letter T, and I think it does. But I remember that. That was terrible. I know. Yeah. There were some people who did lie. I'll agree. There were some that did lie about it, about their involvement in it. In that they said that something did happen to them, when nothing did happen to them. But at the same time, fucking hell. We need to bring back the Megalodon. As someone who's trying to start playing Ark, yes.
Oh, dude, the Megalodon is so small in Ark.
I know, but still.
Just get to the fucking bottom of the ocean. There's some terrifying shit down there.
We'll discuss favorite dinosaurs another time, though, I promise.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I'll join your stream when you're playing Ark sometime.
Yes, we will indeed. At some point, do that, but not today.
Oh, that's fair.
When you saw the... Oh, actually, this is actually quite important. When Barney, what's the dickhead's name? President of the EU, Juncker. That's it. From that tiny little fictitious country of Luxembourg. When he was sat with Trump, how was it reported in US?
It was. It really wasn't, honestly. Like, I had to find out about that by literally going to the BBC.
This is a huge
honestly,
win for him as
now-
well. And yet again, it doesn't get reported. He
No, it
managed to
doesn't.
bend the EU to his will.
Pretty much the only thing that is going on in the mainstream media is the Rod Rosenstein impeachment, because
Okay, so I don't know who
conservatives-
this is. Can you tell me who that is?
Yeah, sure. He's the Deputy Attorney General who endorsed all 3 applications of the FISA application.
And he's getting
Basically
impeached.
saying, yes, well, so because the FISA document is so hard, the reason it is so hard to get is because if you lie, you are subject to, I assume, perjury and and falsifying a government document.
Right.
So technically, that would mean that the Deputy Attorney General, having endorsed something that he willingly knew was false 3 times, would subject him to 3 times perjury, 3 times, conspiracy.
Oh dear,
essentially.
oh dear. Well, naughty, naughty boy.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, impeachment is. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the road we need to go down, because it's going to open up the conversation about impeachment, right?
So can you explain impeachment to me? Because I've heard this word used, and was Bill Clinton impeached?
Yes, he was.
I don't know what it means though. So can you explain that to me?
Sure. Impeachment is basically bringing up formal statement of charges on basically a high-ranking government entity. Every country has their own form of this. The United States is a little different. It's actually enumerated in our Constitution as like one of the first things written in Article 1.
Okay.
It basically gives the House of Representatives power to bring up charges, and then the Senate would then put on trial the officers who were brought up on trial. So the House brings it up, Senate says, yes, we'll do that.
Okay.
And basically, the impeachable offenses are treason, bribery, and, quote, other high crimes and misdemeanors. So the Constitution was kind of vague. I guess it was up to the House and the Senate to kind of interpret how that one worked.
Right.
But
oh shit, OBS has done it special again. I see. There we go.
oh my god,
Every
there's
so
so many of you.
Yeah, every so often it does that. It just pops up a random image, or it will switch between scenes, so it'll do that to me, even though I've done it manually. Does my absolute head in. It's only because I turned my head for a sec to go on Discord to put a picture on shit posting. Oops. That's the last time I share a picture.
Good.
Yeah, it's a good picture. Okay, so what will happen with this impeachment? How does this go down?
So the House of Representatives would have to basically say that we are bringing up impeachment charges on Rod Rosenstein, and they would have to vote to agree this is a thing. I think it's by 2/3. Or nope, it seems to be a simple majority. And then the Senate would try the accused. In the case of the president, usually the Supreme Chief Justice would preside over the proceedings. So you can see why picking a Supreme Court judge is very important for a president. But in this case, for this official, the president of the Senate, or in this case, or the vice president of the United States.
Yes, the vice president's the chair, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes, is he the chair or the speaker of the Senate?
He technically would be called the presiding officer.
Presiding officer. Right, okay.
The president of the Senate, who's also vice president.
Okay, that's pretty good for Mike Pence.
Yeah, I mean, it gives him something to do. I haven't heard much from him since fucking Trump got elected.
When I was addicted to this TV show, Aaron Sorkin did it, called The West Wing, and it was this fantastic show about a sorry.
I said I've actually watched that show. I quite liked it myself.
It was so good. It's a shame they went, like, when he left. I didn't mind the Matt Santos stuff. I got why they did it though. I didn't. There were some really stupid little bits here and there, but where they drew some inspiration from actual political events was really clever, and the way they filmed it was even better. Like in single long shots, following someone walking through various corridors, very clever. But I started to learn about U.S. politics from that show, which was good.
They actually taught us about the hanging Chad situation, which was the 2000 election.
Oh, people seem to forget this.
The West Wing article, or they actually used the West Wing episode to explain that one. That was fun.
Okay, so, the hanging Chad thing wasn't that a reference to the Electoral College, and how George Bush won the election?
Yes, it was a reference to how George Bush won, not the Electoral College.
Right.
What ended up happening was hanging Chad was how they read the votes back in the day. They used to be able to punch through something. But if something didn't actually punch all the way through and the Chad didn't fall, then what could happen is, as you ran the vote through, the Chad would get placed back into place. Imagine like you had like a punch out and you only got like 3 of the sides.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
How that happened.
Yeah, I remember this being mentioned in a TV show called How I Met Your Mother, where it was Ted Mosby's Halloween costume.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I didn't know what it was until I bothered to look it up, and I was like, wow. That's amazing.
But basically, George Bush won Florida because of that, and because a lot of the Florida people are elderly or,
Well, isn't that almost that's typical? That's been proven to be somewhat true. Republicans, wouldn't they be classed as conservatives in the United Kingdom?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So the older generations, we all start off quite young and idealist to an extent, unless you have invested in yourself in politics at a young age. And as you get older, you find your politics become more and more what could be considered to be conservative. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's been proven repeatedly older people tend to vote conservative because they're not ideologues anymore.
But you also have to imagine that basically the people who used to live in Jersey and Philadelphia and New York, they retired to Florida.
Republicans are not pro-monarchy. Thank you for that, Tommy.
Yes, that is a good thing. We so much don't like monarchies that we have a Second Amendment.
You don't like monarchy so much that you walked in front of our Queen when she was showing you her own Grenadier Guard. Yes, okay, honestly, I saw what Trump did.
I watched that video and I didn't understand what. Like I almost felt like Trump in that aspect. I'm like, what am I supposed to be like?
Yeah. So what should have happened was one of the Queen's personal aides should have sat down with one of Trump's and run through the events, so that he knew to walk by her side or behind her, so she could then show off the Grenadier Guard. Because they are very important. They are the Queen's. People seem to forget this, but the army, the military in this country, aren't the property of the government. They don't respond. They do not. They don't do what the government say. They do what the Queen says.
Are they kind of like the Swedish Rose Guard of the
Vatican?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will say now, there are some fantastic stories about the Swedish Rose Guards. And Sabaton did a fantastic song about it.
That was exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, that song is so fucking. They've just done this song recently, and I know this is massively off topic. They've done one with the 1940s timey-wimey style music with 3 ladies singing it, and it's just brilliant.
I love Sabaton. I could talk about them forever.
Yeah, I just bought Coat of Arms, and it arrived today because I've been going through their albums, but I bought a signed copy.
Oh, very nice. I actually. I'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about this later. Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's that and favorite dinosaurs to add to the list. Okay.
Yeah, right. But no, I watched that, and I honestly didn't know what was supposed to happen because I don't remember Obama doing it. and so I can understand why the Americans necessarily weren't outraged.
It's quite possible that with Obama being, this isn't me being ageist or anything, but older people generally, they do lack a certain level of self-awareness, and Trump fits that bill perfectly. You've said it earlier with him being a supreme narcissist. He just doesn't get it. There is a certain decorum, and Obama at least had the common sense, because he probably didn't know, to simply stand back and just wait. Because wait and see does work sometimes, and it is quite. We do have quite a complex system. Like, have you seen Trooping the Colour?
I have not.
Look it up. It is every year on the Queen's birthday. The Grenadier Guard put on a show. It is their birthday present to her, where they do this parade, and it's brilliant, absolutely fantastic stuff. So I get why he wouldn't know what the rules were. But how people played it was just as if that was another mitigating, another notch in the fuck. How was he elected? He's embarrassing his nation, and yet he wasn't here on a state visit. He was here on a presidential, a business visit, which was different. And actually, he told Theresa May to sue the EU for what they've been doing, and he even offered her some of his lawyers. I'll be honest, she should do it.
He's got some balls. You can't deny that.
No, you can't. And I think people don't like that very forward approach. But annoyingly for them, and I would say, yes, it's not very presidential, but then I think the definition has shifted now. It's no longer simply presidential to just be in the middle of the road. I mean, Obama innovated using social media.
Mm-hmm.
With his CACberry, I remember that. That was at the time unpresidential, but he did it. So I think trying to be more forward and actually do it, and actually doing things, is more productive.
Oh yeah, I want to answer Tommy real quick. American Freemasons are not for monarchy. They are mostly Republicans, and they still do use the Scottish and York rights.
And Graham Shawcross is quite right. Different Guards divisions take it in turn to troop the colours each year. You are quite right, and it is a fantastic show. But as we all know, the Grenadier are superior.
I don't even think we have an equivalent.
If you want to watch a decent YouTube series, there's a 3-part series video called Guarding the Queen, and it is focused on the Grenadier Guard in preparation for trooping the colour. And you can just watch it. They show it on TV every year. Tourists come everywhere to see these shows.
I actually am quite interested in that. I'm kind of a history person. Well, my dad was, so I ended up being. So
I'm British, so it's in our DNA. Although a lot of people in this country claim to be anti-monarchy, I'm still somewhat pro. I quite like our history. I like it. And they make us money, so I'm okay with it.
Most Masons, by the way, only use one or the other. They don't do both.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, sorry. It was one of the people said fucking Scottish and York right. Fucking splitters. And I was like, well,
right.
Usually they do one or the other.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
I'm actually an entered apprentice, so.
Is that in the Freemasons?
Yes.
I had a university housemate who joined, and this is again massively off topic, but he joined, and he had all these books for his membership, and he's like, you can't read any of this, so naturally we read it, tore some pages out, really fucked with him.
What a dick. But like physically you actually can't. Like you physically can't read it. It's not work.
I think I got as far as who brought the metric system down. And that was it.
Yeah. But anyway, on topic, I'm sorry I get tangentially.
No, it's quite alright. The chat is there and it's really good they're engaging actually.
Oh, they already did, Carlos. Anyway, but I have issues right now.
Oh, God.
I have issues with them right now. But,
I'm sure you do. Yeah, let's just leave it there.
But no, in regards to this whole the Trump thing, I think honestly he's going to end up winning in 2020, and it's because they won't stop bitching.
Well, who's the California lady Democrat who's recently been
Maxine Waters,
thank you. She's been she's a hypocrite if there ever was
the
one.
psychopath.
Like, she calls for no violence, but then she completely ignores it when people on her own side do it outside her office to a nobody.
A senator was literally shot at during his baseball practice.
She's an actual psycho, just saying.
Yeah, Senator Rand Paul had actually gotten shot at while he was at a rec. He's like libertarian conservative, so like leaning right, I guess.
Okay.
But like, what the shit, dude? You can't do that. Well, I mean, yes, you physically can, but you're a dick. And you're completely ruining everything behind your message. It's kind of like, the same thing with the Tommy Robinson rallies. You don't want to create violence. You did the thing again.
Yeah, I didn't touch anything. I was typing in Discord. Stupid Discord. I'm going to stop doing that now. It's changed back. The Tommy Robinson thing's fascinating. I know that a lot of people have come out in support for him, and I get it. I'm not going to invest in the whole get him out of prison thing because I don't know what the fuck has now happened. I don't know what the judges said.
Ever since his appeal, I actually don't know.
Exactly. I have not heard anything about the appeal. I hope he's successful because he's making some fantastic inroads on YouTube, and you wish anyone happiness and success on any platform.
I mean, you don't want any bad things to happen to really anybody. You always wish the best for everyone.
The problem
and you hope that they can go forward.
Yeah, and the problem with what's going on with Tommy is that he's been sent to prisons that are predominantly Muslim. Him speaking out against Islam will not work out well for him, and I think it's bad. I think if you're going to send him to a prison, you should make it a point to send him to one where he's not then going to almost be butt fucked.
You know what's funny?
Tommy's legal team does not need your help. No, they're not going to get my help. I'm too lazy.
What's interesting is actually Trump advocated on behalf of Tommy Robinson while he was talking with British Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Or Theresa May, just in general. Now, I have to ask, because it's been bugging me.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 weeks ago, you guys were saying there's going to be a vote of no confidence in Theresa May.
There was.
What happened since then?
Right. So, there was an assumption that it could happen, where 49 letters had to be submitted to call for a vote of no confidence. Those 49 letters were in fact submitted, but to avoid it, Theresa May called for an early summer parliamentary recess, because it takes a few weeks to actually process the application for a no confidence vote. Yes, well, because of that, it doesn't happen yet. It doesn't happen because Theresa May has managed to avoid it by calling for holidays. Parliament doesn't do anything for the next 6 weeks.
So it's basically on the back burner.
It could still happen, and it's highly likely that Boris Johnson will challenge leadership soon. I think he will, and I think if he does, he could win, but I'm not convinced. I think he is a legitimate threat now because his speech, he gave it in Parliament in Commons, 11-minute speech about why he voted leave, why it was so important to leave, and nobody interrupted because you're not allowed to. It's customary when a foreign secretary stands down to allow, when they resign, to give them the floor. And he made a fantastic speech about why he felt that we'd lost our way in negotiations, and why he could not support Theresa May's plan, which has now been thrown in the water anyway. It's a case of, okay, well, now might be a good idea to move him back to where he was beforehand, because you've just gotten rid of Boris Johnson for something that didn't work. And I think that's really bad, considering how popular he still is within the Conservative Party, to the point where he will destroy you if you do not come up with something better. Or simply say to the EU, right, well, we've got 3 months of negotiations, I'm going to go and have some scones and tea. You guys can now sweat it out.
Who's the gent that Sargon keeps posting, who is like a leader of, I think, the UKIP party, who keeps
not Barnier. Lord something, isn't it? I can't remember his name.
It's not Dave. It's somebody else.
UKIP leader. Jared Batten.
Yes, he is savage, but his comments remind me remarkably of how Trump deals with people.
Well, isn't that how a lot of older people operate? There are some, obviously, that Corbyn, Sanders are perfect examples of being very sort of, because they're very left-leaning anyway, and they've stayed that way. They don't talk as bluntly unless it's scripted.
But every time I hear Corbyn when I'm watching you respond to
PMQ.
Yeah, thank you. I swear, every time Corbyn speaks, I want to kill him. Like he's the most contemptible human being when he speaks. He never asks actually a question.
What really sucks is that he only looks strong because of how weak Theresa May is, and because of that, people are starting to edge towards him. Well, the guy's nearly 70, if he isn't already. Are you sure you want to vote someone that old in already? I want to check this to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure he's edging 70 now.
But like from
69 years old. Yeah, he's almost 70.
From like a conservative-ish me, I guess, American looking at him, he's the most despicable kind of person when he's dealing with Parliament. I'm just imagine, for example, if a vote of no confidence happens and they, for whatever reason, would vote him in, Trump is going to ream him every time he speaks.
So the job of the opposition isn't to come up with solutions, it's to poke holes in what the government is doing. And I would argue Jeremy Corbyn's actually doing a good job of that as opposition, because he doesn't have to come up with any solutions, probably because his solutions would mean remain a part of the EU, even though he has spent the majority of his career being somewhat anti-EU anyway. And I know this from his voting record. He is not a fan of the EU. But as annoying as he is actually putting forward some compelling arguments against what Theresa May says. And because of that, he looks good. And that's the annoying thing, because he hasn't... His manifesto over the last election, last year, much like Theresa May's, it was just vagueness. It was all vague. Whereas in 2010, when Cameron was in charge, and 2015, his manifestos were quite clear. They had very obvious policies written within them. And
always gotta worry about those people with manifestos.
Yeah, right. I know, right? Then again, you've got Corbyn claims to be a socialist. His chancellor is, was it a Marxist or communist or a socialist or socialist Democrat or something?
Bad politics in general.
Corbyn was initially let down by his own party because they were just so divided. Now he's got the cabinet that works around him, with him. He is quite dangerous. He's not very good at debating. He is not very good at talking to other people. He is, you can tell, he's an introvert. He cannot deal with people on the political stage, and it's quite sad. But at the same time, he's up against Theresa May. He could beat her. And if she does not get a good deal, we can't do hard Brexit now, we know this. But if she doesn't get us a good deal, she's out. We'll have maybe 2-3 years of someone else, and then he'll win. Even if it was, I firmly believe, even if it was Boris Johnson at this point, Boris will probably lose to Jeremy Corbyn because of what Theresa May's done, under the pretense that look what the Conservatives have done to us for the last probably 10 years. Look at the damage they've done. The austerity they had to introduce because Labour's overspending to the point where we were almost bankrupt. You know, forget what Labour did beforehand for 13 years. Look what the Conservatives have done for 10 years. And that argument, that can be spun so many ways to get the masses to vote for Corbyn.
Even after all the anti-Semitic comments?
Oh, actually, after Corbyn changed the definition of what anti-Semitism was, I actually, because of that, if Parliament had continued, right, and we ignore the vote of no confidence, right, I think Theresa May could have flayed him for that one. She could. And she did in Parliament, you saw it. She flayed him for it. he changed the definition. I couldn't believe the cheek on him.
Well, you got to imagine you're letting in a bunch of migrants who, let's be honest here, are very, very anti-Semitic.
There's a certain amount of anti-Semitism about it, yes.
Yeah, and I can kind of see who he's pandering to.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see how in now 5 weeks' time when Parliament restarts. I might cover the opening session because it's quite interesting. Because there's a procedure to it with Black Rod and the Queen. It's interesting.
Now I have to wonder as well. Did you hear about the Syrian jets that got shot down over Israel?
No, that wasn't reported here.
Well, that happened. And some people were saying that, Israel's being aggressive to the Syrians again, and most conservatives are like, what are you talking about? Israel's one of our most powerful allies. Don't fly over a controlled airspace, you dumbass. So I'm interested to see, how does the UK feel about Israel in general?
Oh well, some say that it's that there are some in the Labour Party who want to move Israel to somewhere in the middle of America, and that's not a joke. Naz Shah said that.
How do you do that? How do you relocate a whole bunch of people who are literally there because of Holy Land?
I just don't get it. This is the reasoning that makes it quite tricky. They don't understand the Holy Land aspect and the fact that it's two separate religions that hold it in such high regard. So it's really stupid from the offset to even put this idea across. I get it, why you think it's a good idea, but it's really bad to do it. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I can't see why that's a good idea. You're literally telling all the people who have fought since the 1940s, and I think even a little bit earlier than that, for, that area, which, by the way, has probably been the most contested area in all of history. Yeah, you're going to tell them that after they won, nah, fuck off, get out? Sounds like the UN has something to do with it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, what if we just take Jerusalem?
Well, that's the definitely the most contentious part, because of Jerusalem being both Jewish and Muslim, having connections to
and
both.
Christian,
of course.
But the Christians have abandoned their sentiments of Holy Land. I don't.
Well, I
think
that's probably because they can just can't they just look to the Vatican and be like, there we go.
No, some Catholics, for example, I was raised Roman Catholic, but I have to say I hate the idea that religion is under the jurisdiction of a government.
I hate religion from the offset, to be honest. I don't hate people having beliefs in gods and stuff. I just don't care for any of it.
I just don't like the politics behind it.
I think we're done with the Trump stuff. Do you think there'll be any more conspiracies that'll come out in the next week or two?
Guaranteed.
Okay,
so news story every day.
Yeah, well, most of them are just his tweets alone. Before I finish this, then, would you like to shill yourself?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I believe Omegon has been so kind as to put my channel link in the description.
I have.
If you guys want to come by. A lot of my videos are honestly philosophy and life thoughts. If you have something a little less political on the brain, come by my channel. I try to do something that kind of just piques your interest, makes conversations start, and has conversations that you can talk with your friends about. If you ever wanted to come by and see any of that, I try to put out videos as much as I can. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
That's a lot better than I could have ever done. Go subscribe to Trups, and if you want to, although it's not compulsory, I might in the near future make it compulsory, put a like on this stream, because I want more people to see it. And apparently that helps.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for joining. Thank you, Trups, for joining me, because a lot of this I didn't know.
Oh, thank you for having
very
me.
much, and for you got to speak while I was enduring a headache, waiting for the ibuprofen to kick in, which it has now. Yay! So my headache's gone,
Also,
but there
I
is
heard a ding.
Did you?
I think your Streamlabs went off.
No, it hasn't on my end. I could check quickly, but I'll check because it's possible it might have, and I just didn't notice. That happened on a game stream on Friday, and someone donated $100 to me, and I didn't notice until Discard jumped in the voice chat and told me because I hadn't set the alert to go off on the game channel.
Oh, crazy, man. I don't know.
No, it didn't. So anyway, thank you all very much for joining us, and good night.